MC3 in the real world. 1. Hospitality. Why hospitality conversations bend so easily under emotional, cultural, and linguistic pressure, and how MC3 reveals the hidden dynamics shaping service interactions around the world. Hospitality work is built on the illusion of simplicity. A guest asks, a staff member responds, and the interaction flows effortlessly. At least, that is how it appears from the outside. In reality, hospitality conversations are some of the most complex multilingual, multicultural exchanges in the world. Every interaction carries the weight of expectations, emotions, time pressure, status dynamics, and unspoken cultural scripts that shape how both guest and staff interpret meaning. Words carry responsibility. Tone carries history. And misunderstandings happen quietly, then all at once. In hospitality, communication rarely fails because of poor language. It fails because of competing cultural interpretations of politeness, service, autonomy, and emotional labor. A guest's request may seem simple, but the cultural meaning behind the request shapes how it is delivered and how it is heard. A staff member may believe they are being helpful, but their response may seem dismissive or overly direct. Hospitality magnifies these micro-misalignments because the emotional stakes are high. Guests are not merely customers, they are temporary inhabitants of a space where comfort is the product. This is why hospitality is fertile ground for MC3. The emotional currents move fast. The cultural variables overlap. The linguistic patterns shift mid-conversation. And expectations often collide silently. Take the familiar moment when a guest approaches the front desk with a complaint. They speak calmly, but the tone carries strain. The staff member listens attentively, but their nervousness adds a slight urgency to their responses. The guest interprets this urgency as defensiveness. The staff member interprets the guest's measured tone as criticism. Both parties believe they are being reasonable, yet the emotional climate has already begun to tilt. This is how collapses form, not through conflict, but through misreading the emotional texture of the interaction. In hospitality, collapse often manifests as misplaced positivity. Staff attempt to remain cheerful, even when the guest is expressing frustration. Some cultural groups interpret this positivity as helpfulness, others interpret it as condescension or avoidance. Without MC3 awareness, the staff member cannot recognize that their attempt to maintain a bright tone is the very thing obstructing trust. The guest becomes colder, the staff member becomes more nervous, and the conversation spirals. Multilingual contexts add an additional layer. A guest expressing themselves in a second language often uses simplified structures, short sentences, basic vocabulary, indirect phrasing. Staff may interpret this as uncertainty or indecision. Yet the guest may feel completely clear internally, they simply lack expressive range in that moment. When a staff member offers overly simplified answers, the guest may feel patronized without the staff realizing what happened. The thread keeper and pace regulator become essential here. Both tools prevent the guest from feeling linguistically diminished. Cultural expectations also influence how guests express dissatisfaction. Some cultures approach service issues directly, outlining the problem with precision. Others approach through storytelling, building context gradually. Others soften the complaint with excessive politeness, hoping the staff member understands the hidden meaning. And some avoid expressing dissatisfaction until the very end of the stay, when it is too late to repair. Staff trained only in procedures cannot navigate this complexity. Staff trained in MC3 can. MC3 reveals that hospitality interactions follow emotional arcs similar to those in high-level professional environments, but compressed into minutes rather than hours. A 2-minute conversation at reception may contain all 5 elements of collapse and repair. Staff must learn to read emotional weather quickly, adjust pace instantly, and hold the thread of meaning while the guest expresses themselves through cultural filters. Consider the moment a guest asks, "Is it possible to change my room?" To a staff member from a direct culture, this is a simple question. But to a guest from an indirect culture, the question might be a carefully softened expression of deeper discomfort. The guest may be communicating distress politely. The staff member hears a logistical inquiry. Without recognizing the emotional content beneath the phrasing, the staff member may respond too literally, causing the guest to feel dismissed. MC3 bridges this gap by teaching staff to listen for the unspoken, tone inconsistency, softening phrases that hide urgency, hesitation indicating cultural politeness, or linguistic simplification masking discomfort. The staff member learns to respond not simply to the words, but to the emotional field shaping them. Another common scenario, a multilingual guest mispronounces the name of a local dish when ordering. They repeat themselves twice. The server offers the menu again, assuming misunderstanding. The guest, feeling embarrassed, changes their order entirely. The staff member believes they have been helpful. The guest walks away feeling diminished. A single moment of linguistic uncertainty reshaped the entire emotional tone of their evening. The emotional buffer tool is especially powerful here. A server who gently affirms understanding, through tone, through warmth, through unhurried presence, prevents the guest from contracting emotionally. MC3 transforms the moment from tension into connection. And then there are situations where guests carry cultural expectations about hierarchy. In some cultures, speaking assertively to hospitality staff is normal. In others, assertiveness is avoided because it feels disrespectful. Staff often misinterpret these differences. An assertive guest may appear angry when they are not. A soft-spoken guest may appear satisfied when they are not. MC3 helps staff read intention beneath behavior by recognizing that cultural logic, not personality, drives these styles. Hospitality also involves constant emotional resets. Guests arrive tired, hungry, rushed, anxious, overstimulated, or lost. Staff meet each of these emotional states within seconds. The reset tool becomes indispensable. Staff can bring a guest back to the present moment gently by shifting tone, slowing the pace, and offering language that anchors rather than overwhelms. When staff master MC3 principles, the effect on hospitality environments is transformative. Guests feel seen without feeling exposed. They feel understood without needing perfect language. They feel safe expressing needs without fear of judgment. And staff feel less drained, less reactive, less responsible for emotional storms that do not belong to them. Conversations become smoother, miscommunications fewer, and service recovery more effective. Hospitality is often described as a people business, but this oversimplifies the complexity. It is a multilingual, multicultural relational system in constant motion. MC3 does not change the nature of hospitality, it reveals its true shape. It gives staff a language to understand moments that previously felt chaotic or unpredictable. And it gives guests an experience that feels effortless, even when the emotional and cultural dynamics beneath the surface are anything but simple. The next chapter, Retail, explores a similarly complex environment, but one in which time is shorter, pressure is higher, and emotional misreadings often happen before staff even realize a conversation has begun. Case: the guest who wasn't being difficult at all. A high-end hotel in Barcelona prided itself on warm, intuitive service. One afternoon, an American guest approached the front desk with what sounded like a sharp complaint. His room wasn't acceptable and he wanted a different standard, immediately. The receptionist felt her chest tighten, his tone was abrupt, his phrasing defensive. She assumed he was being demanding. When she walked with him to the room, she noticed the truth. He hadn't understood the Spanish-English signage, had misinterpreted the room description, and thought he had received the wrong category. His complaint was actually embarrassment wrapped in urgency. He was using tone to mask uncertainty. When she gently reframed the situation, "Let's look together so I can make sure everything matches what you expected," the defensiveness dissolved. He apologized quietly for the tone he had used. In hospitality, tone often hides vulnerability, not aggression. Scenario practice: the tone behind the complaint. Next time you hear a complaint, assume the emotion beneath it is vulnerability, not aggression. Respond to the vulnerability. The complaint will resolve itself.